Hey guys, I hope you're doing good today. This is Ashley, and today the location is a little bit different because I am in an Airbnb, just like visiting some family out of town. But today I'm going to be talking about what kind of comes before the marriage, some things to work on, like emotionally, mentally, and just like some ways to work on you before the marriage comes. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I know a lot of people come to my channel to watch my past videos. Honestly, it was probably the first video I've like ever created, but it was about like how we got married and our whole process to like getting married before our wedding and things like that. But a lot of people still watch that video. It's kind of mind-blowing that people are still watching that that video every single day. But I thought that it could be really important to kind of just talk about like before all the excitement of the marriage comes, like some things to do to work on yourself emotionally and mentally, and just a couple of other topics that I think is like really important to think about. So let's get started with the very first one. Okay, so the very first one is growing a relationship with God. Like this was the first thing that happened in my life because I kind of got to a place where I was like, you know what? I want to get to know God for myself. Like, I want to gain an understanding and like grow in Christ in this season. I think this was, whew, I don't remember the year, maybe 2014, 2015, somewhere around there, where I was like, I really want to know God. In an intense way. So in the season was a time that I like got serious about like putting all the things from my past behind me, like just realizing that, you know what, God, like there's no more going out, there's no more like sex before marriage, like none of that is happening because I'm literally putting you at the center of my life, essentially saying like all the things I was doing before that I knew that God was telling me to not do, I was like, I'm gonna listen now, God. Like I surrender completely to you. I want you at the center of my life. And I feel like that is when my life completely transformed and changed. And there were so many things that God was revealing to me, and it was just such a powerful season. And then he also allowed me to see that there were times that like I needed to not put relationships before him, that I couldn't put a guy or anything else in my life before him. I needed him in first place in my life. And I think that was just so transformational and helpful for me. And I also kind of had this revelation of I want God at the center of my marriage. I'm not married now. I don't know when I'm going to get married was essentially the way I was thinking then. But I was like, I know this is something that God has called me to do, get married. So I want him at the center of my marriage. So that means I have to put him at the center of my life now. And me and my husband were dating then. So like at the center of our relationship as well. So it was a beautiful season. I'm so grateful that that was the very first thing I did on my pathway of preparing for marriage, even though I didn't even know that's what I was doing. But I'm just glad I did it for myself because I feel like I was able to grow so many ways, and having him at the center of my life now means that God can be at the center of our marriage, and it's just such a beautiful thing, y'all. Like, it is so beautiful to have him at the center of our marriage. Okay, so the very next one is something that it is so near and dear to my heart, and that is like focusing on your healing. Like, I think that this is so important, and I think when you think about it from the lens of marriage, it's even like, like, it is like magnified because everything that you don't deal with before marriage is going to show up some way in your marriage. And I do feel like your spouse is there to help you and guide you in life, but I feel like you have to put those initial steps in place of healing before marriage, like knowing what your triggers are, knowing the things that you want to work on. Even if you're not entering marriage like I'm in this healed place, because I feel like healing is a journey that you just go through your entire life. I think taking those initial steps to start to heal from anything that happened in your past, because those things are going to come up in your future. Someone could say something to you that's simply a trigger word, and then you're like, why am I upset with them? I don't even know why. But that's because you may have heard that in a past relationship. That's because you may have dealt with that in your childhood. That's because maybe someone walked out of your life when you were a kid, so now you have this overarching fear or anxiety that your husband may leave you someday. So like there's so many things that I feel like like it's so important to try to work on, whether that's talking to someone, whether that's getting professional help, which I think we all should be going to a therapist, like just to do like a maintenance check-in, like literally just to make sure you're good, you're okay, and that you have that outlet to go to, that safe space. So I feel like that's just important in general, but just being intentional about finding ways to work through those past traumas and finding strategies that you feel like are really going to work for you, because everything that you did not deal with outside of marriage and before marriage is going to come up in some way. Like, it will. You don't even know that it's a trigger sometimes, and it's like, oh wow, like that's why I'm upset right now. That's why what you said bothered me or rubbed me the wrong way. Okay, so these are just things that I've learned. Like, literally focus on your healing. I think it's really, really, really important to focus on those things just outside of even marriage for you, because you deserve to be healed. Like, you deserve to receive healing in your life. And I feel like it allows you to enter relationships with more clarity, because you're no longer holding on to these past hurts, which could then turn into you being in toxic relationships or chasing something that's also toxic. If you saw something really detrimental in your childhood that related to relationships, then you may find yourself in similar relationships to that. And that's what I mean by like finding your own healing for yourself, and it's gonna benefit you in marriage is a better way, I think, to kind of say that. Okay, so I'm essentially like going in order with these things in the way in which I feel like it kind of happened in my life, or the timeline kind of played out in my life. So the very next thing I want to mention here is focusing on your dreams and your goals, like really being intentional about going after those things while you are still in this single season and single like phase in your life. And I'm considering single like any like moment before you actually say I do and get married. So for me, I felt like it was really intentional. Like, I needed to be intentional about doing this. And now being married, I realize why it's so important. Because if you don't know the pathway that you are or God is desiring for your life to go, it makes it really hard sometimes to figure that out while you're married. Let me rewind for a second. Not hard, not impossible, but you have all of these other things that you now are thinking about, and it's not just you. Kind of like how Paul in the Bible talks about, like, I can just spend all my time with God essentially because I'm single. It's kind of like that in some ways. Like, I can just figure out my life and do all the things that I'm called to do because I'm single and I'm not thinking about anyone else. It's kind of what happens in that season before marriage, because you have the beauty to simply focus on you. What is God calling you to do? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are you trying to accomplish? I feel like I had a really beautiful season before I got married, where I just graduated with my master's degree. I didn't really know exactly the next steps, but it kind of fell into place because I ended up living in a new city, like working at like this dream university I always wanted to work at, and like working in a dream lab that I literally have been praying to work in for years. And it felt like I was just like so laser focused in that season and focusing on my goals. And I feel like that season helped me to kind of see some of the things that I desire in the future, some of the things that I'm wanting to get to in the future, even like right now. So I'm really grateful for just having that time in that season. And beyond focusing on my dreams and my goals in that season, I was so focused on just like me and like myself and like traveling and like doing different things that like brought me joy. I also felt like I was an individual during that season as well, because it was just like we lived in two different cities, we were long distance, we were dating from afar, so I still had the opportunity just to spend time alone, spend time with my own thoughts, focus deeply on the goals that I had during that season. So it was really beautiful. I'm not saying you have to be long distance to have all of that, but essentially what I'm saying is, even if you are in the same city or around each other, I think that what was helpful for me, I'll just say it this way, what was helpful for me was not being a wife or doing the things that a wife would do before marriage, and focusing more on being an individual, focusing more on my goals and the dreams that I had in my life, or still have in my life even now, honestly. The last thing that I want to mention is how it's important, like from the moment you get engaged, to focus more on the marriage than the actual wedding. the wedding is going to be amazing if that's what you decide to have. It'll be a really sweet moment. It can be something that is still the wedding of your dreams, like really lavish, or a small wedding, like whatever your dream wedding is. But I feel like essentially it's super, super, super important during this season to focus more on the marriage than planning the wedding. Like that is going to fall into place. If you need to get a planner or whatever, somebody to help you plan it, do that. But put your intention on focusing on the marriage, getting the premarital counseling, not just from only a pastor. I think that's really, really, really important to go to pastoral counseling, but I also think it's really, really, really important as well to talk to a licensed professional. I think just having somebody as that mediator in between you two to focus on past things that you may need to bring up before you get married and say I do is really, really important. But also having that pastoral counselor to give you guidance from that realm is important too. So focusing on the counseling piece, focus on like how can we grow together? Like what are the things that are like hard conversations that maybe we should have now? Like how can we talk about ways that you may need support within marriage? Like just asking yourself and asking each other all of these questions are really important. The financial piece, of course, is a given to talk about before marriage, or how you would handle this. Like what are your non-negotiables? Like for me, a non-negotiable for me and my husband was like, we are going to always show up for our family. Like regardless if our family needs us, we're dropping everything and we will be there for them no matter the time, the hour, the place, whatever it is. So I knew I could never be, and he knew the same thing, he could never be with somebody who didn't value that. So it's like, what are the things that we value the most that we have to talk about? Like, what is it? What does that look like? So yeah, I think that, just putting the marriage before the wedding is important. Have your dream wedding, whatever that means, but make sure you are focused on what comes after those 5 hours of that event, which is a lifelong of what I'm believing for you is beautiful marriage. All right, guys, so that kind of sums up this video, and I hope that it was really helpful for you. I hope you're able to take something away. I think it's so important to focus on yourself, your dreams, your goals, your relationship with God before you say I do. I just really do. Like just being at a good place emotionally, spiritually, and just like within yourself is so, so, so important. And yeah, I hope this was really helpful for you. And if you have any questions or want to see something, surrounding this topic or just wellness and things like that in the future, please leave it down below. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.